Hi everyone. The purpose of this video is to go over all the lab equipment and supplies that we will be using this year. Make sure that you follow along with the worksheet that I gave you so that you can become familiar with all the different lab supplies that you will come across this year. The first thing we're going to talk about is a beaker, and you can see a picture of the beaker right on the bottom right. We'll use different size beakers this year, but the purpose of a beaker is to hold solids or liquids that will not release gases when reacted or are unlikely to splatter if stirred or heated. And the importance of that is the beaker is very wide open at the top, so if something was going to splatter or release gases that were potentially dangerous, we would want something that had a smaller opening at the top. So beakers will typically be used for holding water or other very unharmful substances that we will use to measure out things. An Erlenmeyer flask. Now this is what I was talking about when you have something that may release gas or may be a little bit more dangerous to deal with. You use an Erlenmeyer flask. They hold solids or liquids that may release gases during a reaction or that are likely to splatter if stirred or heated. So again, they come in a variety of sizes, but as you can see, the top of them is a lot smaller, the opening on the top. A graduated cylinder. These are used to measure volume of liquids, so we'll use these to measure out liquids depending on what the lab we are doing calls for. So if you need 10 milliliters, you may use one of these smaller ones right here. But if you need something more, like 50 to 60 milliliters, you may use a larger one. Test tubes and a test tube rack. Test tubes hold small amounts of liquids to use during a lab, and the test tube rack holds the test tubes in place on a flat surface. They do not stand up by themselves, so this keeps them steady and sturdy and prevents them from falling or leaking or whatever it is we'll use them for. A glass stirring rod. This can be used to manually stir solutions. It can also be used to transfer a single drop of solution. We will use these a lot when mixing different solutions. For example, when we do the cheek cell DNA lab, you'll use this to mix up and actually pull up your own DNA out of the test tube. pH paper. This will be used when we do our chemistry section. They're used to measure the acidity or alkalinity of a liquid. So you basically dip a little strip of this paper into a solution. And depending on the color that appears on the paper, that can tell you the pH of your substance. So if you look at the scale on the front of the picture here, something that falls between a pH of 1 through 6 is said to be acidic, whereas something that falls from a pH from 8 to 12 is basic. The pH of 7 acts as your neutral. Right in the middle, the pH will be considered neutral. Water usually falls right around a little bit above or below 7. Forceps, also known as tweezers, are used to pick up small objects that you don't typically want to touch with your hands or may be too small to pick up with your hands. A spatula, not the type that you flip pancakes with. This one's a little bit smaller. It is used to transfer small amounts of chemicals or solids from their container. You should never touch chemicals with your bare hands, so this makes it easier to scoop out the chemicals and put them on a piece of weighing paper or whatever it is you are transferring it to without actually touching the chemicals. And a hot plate. This is used to heat and sometimes stir a substance. Here's a little tip. We will always unplug these hot plates when they are not in use. And if you see a hot plate sitting on the counter, be careful not to touch it if it is still hot. They live up to their name. They are very, very hot. And if you do not warn people of when the hot plate is still hot, even though it is unplugged, someone could get seriously burned. And that's it for the lab equipment slideshow. Please check back for lab safety.